with the restructuring.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. I just want to go to Western
Airport.
Western Sydney. No worries.
The flight paths are in this.
This is the right group for that.
Look, I might ask Mr. Wood to do that. He's probably can give a more comprehensive summary than I can.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Wood.
Yeah. Western Sydney have been under development for considered through the environmental impact assessment several years ago. Since that time, we've been airspace plans that take account of the conditions that were put in place through the airport plan. So, for example, maximise the use of head-to-head or reciprocal runway operations when safe to do so. Taking account of safety as an absolute priority, minimising the overflight of residential areas and noise-sensitive facilities. Come up with very good, rigorous flight paths. They still have to go through the simulation. Flight paths are at a reasonably mature stage, which is going to now enable the environmental assessment work so we can actually for full consultation through a environmental impact assessment process.
Who has carriage of the work? So who's in charge?
Yeah. Group consisting of ourselves, Air Services CASA, Western Sydney Airport, and indeed KSA as an observer, and the chair of the as well. In a relatively mature stage of the draft plan.
This wasn't clear before. What was the timeline for the releasing publicly the actually, how would the public be engaged regarding
understanding of flight paths and how the community will be able to engage through the community consultation. At that time, we will be looking to have a very thorough consultation process in it.
So when the flight path is a very long process.
Yeah, I think we want to come up with a robust set of flight paths that seek to balance the we've been able to and an important part of that will be community feedback.
I just want to go to aviation recovery. Long period of time, is it not?
So, Senator, this work was done while the department was also managing the impacts of the pandemic. So it was a time of at the changing nature of the industry and what it was seeking to how you recover in the initial I wonder if Ms. Quigley.
I think it was about March, April last year.
What was happening in February, March last year, we're actually moving into a next round of the pandemic. Looking at the future of the aviation industry, that changed over time as the pandemic progressed. The market structures changed, the supports changed. Taken the focus to what's going to happen in government, and they had choices to consider. That that we were in the position of
Appreciate there will
I think it was just
So
after
that-
my
that's-
EFO though, which is where the decision.
briefly.
of the framework.
Framework.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. So it has, just trying to bring up the diagram.
efficiency, revitalising GA, optimising
On page 9 of the framework.
So listen, the sector responded to news of the ADSB technology.
His division, but it is aimed at improving safety for the aviation sector.
Formed in response to feedback from the sector. All our children.
That's a good answer.
Well, Minister, it strikes me that despite nearly a decade in office and having spent we're not getting a press conference, we're not getting fanfare, we're not well, it just seems that so much criticism has been of the government not following through. Now they're not even making a statement. Timelines on what the plan is for the aviation industry. That seems to be fairly self. All the way many months later, and yet no fanfare. Well, Minister, what is the plan then for the aviation sector? What's the plan for the plan?
in terms of boosting in my info, to support the next step in the aviation recovery.
The aviation sector, and for example, the need to transition away from government support, the need to address competition between airports and airlines, particularly with zero. These are all critical issues, and yet we
different markets have different levels of maturity about and we, focused on that. At the moment, my focus is on having a sustainable and accessible at a
and getting it right because it's so economically important to
Absolutely.
this country. And appreciate that you've said there's one particular issue you had to concentrate recently, and I appreciate that. That's that.
Got a recovery framework about.
So, Ms Brown, there doesn't seem to be much real reform
project. It will involve a few years of reform, but there is a real commitment there and a program of reform to improve the efficiency of the airports. Over a number of phases of work, over a number of years.
Profitability of our airports is charging an approach to what happens with international thing in terms of their capacity to both bear cost and to participate in the market at the moment. So, as I said before, the recovery piece to get us back
Ms Brown, how's the sector responded to the framework?
I think that's not to be unexpected, that people would wish to see different things to what was in the report and more in the report. But
So there's some issues that people are taking. What are the other
there was Ms Crick is shaking her head, but I'm going to check with that during the course of that meeting that I believe was only last week.
Present at the meeting, but the GA sector, GA subsector, which was the purpose of that meeting. The began framework.
mindful of time?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. I really appreciate that.